Hello again, I am Blunty. And you know what's weird? I've just done the math. Well, when I say I've done the math, what I mean is I asked Google to do the math for me. But the math says we are a mere 19 weeks away from the 20th anniversary of the birth of Monster Hunter as a series. And bewilderingly, while Capcom has started to nod in the direction of a 20th anniversary celebration of some kind with a single image and a very basic page on the official website, somehow we still know exactly nothing about the next game in the series. A game pretty much the entire Monster Hunter player community is anticipating to be released on and for the 20th anniversary on the 11th of March 2024. Last week I put up a video which depressingly got crap all views, either because the YouTube robot mind buried it for its own esoteric reasonings, or maybe my subscribers genuinely just didn't care to watch it. Please let me know in the down below if you saw this in your feed, and if you chose to watch it, because the algorithm is impenetrable and it's very, very frustrating. But in that video I spoke about the enduring active player base on the second most recent Monster Hunter game, Monster Hunter World, and I especially spoke about how active the player base was in the Iceborne content, the Master Rank expansion DLC, something I myself am finally currently playing through. If you want to know what took me so long to get there, well, go watch that other video. I tell a whole story about it. But I largely conjectured, by taking a peek at how many multiplayer quests were active in the low and high rank quests and what was running there, that a brand new player to the series would be pretty well served by Monster Hunter World if they decided to jump on board as a fresh, brand new, shiny player here in late 2023 or even early 2024. But it was just that. It was conjecture, a presumption. I mean, based on evidence, sure, but not actually tested. So, over the last fistful of days, I set out to actually test that hypothesis. Is Monster Hunter World actually newbie-friendly in 2023? Here is how I went about finding out, using 3 simple rules. Rule 1, a brand new save file, of course. Rule 2, we won't be using the Guardian armor or Guardian weapons. These were added to the game shortly before Iceborne, especially to trivialize low and high rank hunts to help people rush through that content to reach Master Rank and the Iceborne DLC as fast as possible on a new file. It is not intended to be the default experience for Monster Hunter World, especially for a brand new player. Rule 3, only solo hunt when absolutely required. While there is a good argument to be made that soloing as much low rank and high rank content as you can will make you a more skilled player, this game can also be a little intimidating for new players. Monster Hunter was designed to be more fun in multiplayer. So all of that is basically to say, whenever we have a key quest, that is a quest that requires progress in the game, we'll be firing off an SOS flare as soon as the game allows us to ask for other players' help, which is usually after a cutscene introducing a new monster. An SOS flare, by the way, is simply this game's immersive way of opening up an active hunt to multiplayer joins. And whenever we're farming for monster parts or doing side quests, we'll be joining other players' hunts whenever possible. If there's no appropriate hunt already started, we'll start one of our own and immediately SOS flare when the hunt starts. The whole idea is to test how active the player community still is, specifically in low and high rank questing. How much support and help can an absolute fresh newbie expect? So with all of that in mind, here's how that went. I started my new adventure by pushing through the basic tutorial stuff, and it's only here that I really broke any of my own rules because the opening few quests can, and frankly should be, soloed very easily, and they're more about teaching you a few basic concepts of the game than actually challenging you. The only exception might be the quests called The Best Kind of Quest and Sinister Shadows in the Swamp, which a newbie might want help with. And I did frequently check how often these were SOS'd, and people are still running them in multiplayer. But frankly, for me, it's just kind of faster to push through these if I solo these ones. And after I completed them, I did actually go back and join a few of the active ones to help some other players out. You know, just for the sake of expediency in the very opening of the game, I didn't kick in my full rule set until Flying Sparks, a hunt for a Toby Kadachi, which, at least in my opinion, is the first quest that might give a brand new player some issues. Toby is very fast compared to anything a player has seen so far. It's very bouncy and introduces a stun mechanic that can, and probably will, catch out a newbie. Annoyingly, for some reason, my dumbass forgot to actually record this first true part of my challenge. I did record some subsequent gameplay footage where I joined other people's version of this hunt, but suffice to say, I SOS'd, and I did indeed receive some help rather rapidly from a slightly higher level player who was running a lance weapon. After that, I did a little multiplayer. I joined a multiplayer expedition, which for the newbies, an expedition is an open-ended quest with no specific goal, no specific target. You just get to roam around the map for as long as you like, either fighting whatever monsters you happen to come across or gathering resources. Unlike a regular hunt, there's no fail state, so if you get your bum knocked out, or in Monster Hunter parlance, you get carted, it's fine. So I joined, I gathered, resourced, and I fought. And by nature of joining someone else's expedition, I was able to fight a few monsters I hadn't actually unlocked quests for in my own save yet. Give me a little head start on some of their materials. An actual fresh newbie might have some, let's say, dramatic learning experiences doing this, because you can come across some rather challenging monsters you might not be ready for yet, but I am not an actual newbie. I know I'm quite familiar with these big boys, so I didn't feel like I was in much danger. Especially not in a multiplayer expedition where there was help around. That said, this was actually the very first time in Monster Hunter World that I've ever picked up this particular weapon class that I'm using for this test, the light bowgun. While I have a few hundred hunts with it over on Monster Hunter Rise, these are legitimately the first few rounds I've fired in anger in World. So there was a little something fresh feeling here for me. And after the expedition, I joined a couple more optional hunts in progress to farm up some extra materials and reward money. And even at this super early stage in the game, I had no problem at all finding hunts available to me at my very low rank. Then came the Pookie Pookie hunt, another one that can catch newbies off guard, as this is the first monster with a significant ranged and AoE attack, and a broader selection of behaviors. Also poison, which is the first time you'll discover this game has damage over time status effects. My Pukey hunt was also the first time in this experiment where I had what was to become a relatively common occurrence. A very high level player joined this extremely low rank quest, and they brought their endgame gear with them. And so as soon as they arrived, they utterly trivialized the fight. From me engaging the monster, and ignore the in-game clock, I took my sweet ass time tracking down the Pookie to start this fight because I was exploring and unveiling more of the map first. But from the start of the fight to the Hunter rank 100 player joining, it took less than 90 seconds to dismantle the Pookie Pookie. For context, at the time I was HR4, that's Hunter rank 4. We also had a HR2 player join us. I joined a couple more Pookie hunts in progress after that, and had the same thing happen. A very high rank player joining a low rank quest with their high level gear on, and absolutely trivializing the entire hunt in seconds, basically. On the one hand, useful if you're farming parts, very, very efficient. On the other hand, if the fight's over in under 2 minutes, that's not going to help someone new learn the fight, because it doesn't leave much time for the fight to happen. If these high-ranked players were just farming low-ranked stuff to start crafting chains, from stuff they've not made yet, they could easily do this stuff solo these days just as quickly, if not quicker. No, these players are here specifically because they're intending to help new players crack open this game. And rather interestingly, when I did start to notice how many HR 100-ish players and even HR 999 players I'd see in low-rank multiplayer, I started watching them more carefully. And about 70% of them, while they were indeed in very powerful gear, they weren't actually going ham. A lot of them kind of played support a little bit, giving the low-rank player a little room to breathe and learn, but stepping in when they were in trouble. Some of them, of course, did go absolutely honey-glazed ham and deleted the monster from all time and space in moments flat. But yeah, most, and I genuinely mean most, seemed very happy to be kind of chill and give the newbie a little more time and space to learn. So that was neat, and when I thought about it, I started to realize I've done the same thing over on Rise. I've even done it live on stream, as a matter of fact. I remember very specifically talking to my chat and walking them through what the newbie is doing or not doing, and trying to kind of run interference or support when the newbie was in trouble. This is a key part of Monster Hunter. Everybody's on the same side, and there's no PvP, so there is very, very little toxicity, at least compared to a lot of other multiplayer games. Anjanath was next, though, another one that'll stall out newbies for at least a little bit. A very grouchy boy. And one of my favorite monsters, actually. Sure, I mean, the design is kind of basic T-Rex, but there's something about the flammable snot rocket dino that I just really enjoy. It took a little under 2 minutes from firing my SOS flare to when help arrived once more in the form of a high rank player. In this case, a HR 789, a fellow light bowgunner as a matter of fact. And with this fight, I started to stretch my legs just a little bit with the weapon, for the first time feeling a need to use more than the basic ammo type. And the high rankers were clearly holding back a little, as from arrival to hunt end, it was about 4.5 minutes. So about half the time I would expect to be able to solo this guy at this stage. Then, one of the least liked quests in the whole game, the tedious and not at all exciting or even remotely interesting Zora Magdaros Siege. And to my shock, there were people still willing to jump in on this tedium and help newbies out. This is widely known as one of the most boring, dull, uninteresting, unfun quests in the entire game, in fact in the entire series perhaps, and people were still willing to join to help other people out with it. In fact, I got a full 4-player hunt with it, which doesn't speed things up much, as this quest is basically on a timer anyway, but still, it's nice not to be alone in this very tedious part of the game. But with that done, it was on to the Coral Highlands. This part is solo only, so I explored, I searched, I gathered, I was ambushed by a paparazzi raptor, and then it was time to fight the Floofbat. Once you get here, you can pop the SOS again, so that's what I did. And just under 2 minutes later, I get help in the form of a Switch Axe Hunter with a hunter rank of 682. And a familiar name. But they didn't actually contribute much to the hunt. They were pretty slow in getting to me, and by the time they caught up to the monster as it zoned away from me, it was all over within about 30 more seconds. So even though help did arrive, I basically soloed this one. Still though, help did arrive, and if I had been a less experienced hunter, I know I'd have needed the help while trying to learn the ways of this erratic little balloon-necked cutie bat. I certainly did on my actual newbie experience with the game like half a decade back. On to the Rotten Vale next, first to explore and collect monster tracks, spot a great Duros, and then on to the first mandatory hunt of this map, a Radaban. And this one is solo enforced. You're not allowed to fire SOS flare here, they're locked out. So you can consider this a little skill check hunt. It's not at all that tough, but you will need to be up to snuff on positioning and spotting your openings and be ready to dodge out of the way, because if given the chance, he will smush you. And at this point in your gearing up, a 2-shot kill isn't out of the question from Goopy Beyblade here. From the first bullet to the last, this took me about 7 minutes to take down, which I did using my first trap of the game, having just crafted a few up. The next section of the game is a big dump of exposition and whatnot, which, in a game where cutscenes are not skippable, is kind of tedious if you've already sat through them, but whatever. But once I did sit through those, I cleared my head and got back in the zone by popping in on an arena fight with a Rathian, fresh off the flare and already 2 other hunters on task. It wasn't much of a fight, clearly just a high-rank player farming up some materials for a crafting line or something. Poor old Wrath got her poop kicked all the way in inside of 2 minutes, including a tail cut. So basically free money and free materials for me on this one. But the next key progression quest along was Legiana, and this was an interesting one. It seemed like I was going to have to solo it for a while, as this was one of the longer waits I had after firing an SOS for help to actually come along. But about 5 minutes into the hunt, help did finally arrive in the form of 1120, a HR 584 player, and another light bowgunner. At the time of their arrival, I was in one of the more pain-in-the-ass places to actually get to on this particular map, so it took them another couple of minutes to actually reach me, and when they arrived, it only took another minute or so to finish off old leggies here. But again, much like my experience with the Floofbat, if I had been a less experienced hunter and being a bit less efficient in how I was handling things, I absolutely would have needed this help and would have been very thankful for it. Next up, a quest that starts off with a little exploration and story exposition stuff, but then turns into a proper hunt when you're ambushed by Clifford, the world's most furious big red puppy. Man, this guy. My very first time with Monster Hunter World, this doggo, made entirely out of teeth, claws, glued together with nothing but seething rage, absolutely tore me open. I needed, not just wanted, but needed help with this one back in the day, just to give me enough breathing room to actually start to learn the fight, because this bastard just gives you no space to breathe. These days, of course, I know where my openings are and where not to stand, and it's really not so hard at all, but to a newbie, this guy's intimidating. So of all of the low rank stuff so far, I was most curious to see how quickly and how much help would arrive on this one in particular. I fired the SOS flare from camp this time, not waiting until I had actually engaged the monster like I usually would. And then I set out towards Odogo, and within 45 seconds of firing the flare, and within 16 seconds of actually starting the fight, help was on the way. Within the next minute they had arrived and were making their way to me. Then Menace, the HR-112 Charge Blade user, and his palico with a surprisingly plain name, Matthew. We spent the next 4.5 minutes or so trying to teach Odogo how to sit and stay. By this point, I was HR9. Oh, hey, nearly double digits. And I'd been crafting and upgrading my armor set and weapon along a bit, doing a few side quests, arena hunts, joining a few open expeditions, and meeting a fairly even mix of low and high-ranked players along the way. And still, never yet finding it even slightly problematic to find a good selection of open hunts anytime I wanted, or indeed having people pop in on my SOS flares every single time I fired one off. It was failsafe. I asked for help, I got it, every time. But then comes the next monster, the next wall most newbies will glimpse death with. Deceptively herbivorous, cactus-munching maniac of the sands, Diablos. It actually took a little longer than I expected to summon some help on this one. Usually Diablos is something people enjoy farming. But that said, it was still only 3 minutes from flare to someone answering the call. But surviving 3 minutes solo against a Diablos for the first time player is a pretty decent ask. I'm pretty sure my first encounter with one had my limp body bouncing across the sand and carting back to camp in less than that time. But help was on the way, and 90 seconds later they were on the field of battle, a HR 334 sword and shielder who, I suspect, might have only just picked up that particular weapon type as, well, to be honest, despite their high level, they were not what I would call good at the trusty sword and board moveset. They weren't fighting especially efficiently. But hey, 5.5 minutes from flare to finisher isn't so bad for Diablos. Pushing forward, one more Zora Siege quest to drag myself through in mind-numbing tedium. Once more, I was surprised to find multiplayer help was easy to get for one of the least enjoyed quests in the game. But finally, with that victory under my gun holster, it was time to fight a Pookie Pookie again. But this one is acting a bit different. This one's noticeably more challenging than the ones I've filled full of shrapnel so far in my adventures. This one, in fact, marks the transition out of low rank and into high rank. And being thus, it is another solo-only skill check quest, essentially. You must prove yourself against it, alone. You must prove yourself to be worthy of moving into high-rank hunts. My gear was as good as low rank permitted, my bowgun was the pinnacle of low rank pew-pews, and my armor, well, it was fine, actually, to be honest with you. I wasn't sweating the armor upgrades much in low rank because I'm not a real newbie and I didn't feel the need for extra defense levels. But all the same, it took me about 8.5 minutes to chip away at the high rank Pookie's health pool enough to zerp it up in a trap and call it a day in the Wildspire Wastes. And with that, it was done. High rank was mine at HR 11 and just a smidge under 20 hours of chilling my way through the low ranks. Oh, and you totally can burn through this much faster if you want, but hey, no need to rush, especially if you are new to the game. Take your time, glide through low rank nice and gentle. But yeah, as far as low rank goes, for a brand new player starting from scratch with no use of any bonus items, no use of the overpowered content skipping defender armor or weapons, and relying on multiplayer as often as the game allows, absolutely, Playbase is still easily active, engaged, and eager to help new players out. Like I said before, I never once, not even a single time in anything I was doing, had a hunt where at least one player failed to come to my aid. It wasn't rare for 2 or even 3 other hunters to join in too, especially for the optional quests and expeditions for part farming and resource gathering and the like. And every single time I fire up the SOS search to join someone else's hunt, I found a selection of active quests to choose from, again both in required and in optional types. Monster Hunter World is still extremely newbie friendly when it comes to how much community support and multiplayer fun is on offer. And speaking personally, going through low rank again was in fact quite a lot of fun and felt pretty rewarding. More fun and more rewarding than I was honestly expecting of it. Next though is high rank, and I started this part of the adventure live on stream over the weekend. Let me know if you'd like a recap style video for that progress as well, because I was having a bunch of fun. But, long story short, on high rank, yeah, there's still a very active player base in that section of the game too. I'm still working my way through, but in a 9-hour-long stream, I did move from my first high rank hunts to defeating the first of this game's elder dragons. Or at least the first one with a real fight, not the siege crap of Magdaros. For the curious, I chose Smokey the Corpse Bride as my first elder dragon to fight, and it went smooth-ish. Oh, but man, you should have seen my struggle with Rock Doggo stuck in my low rank armor. Hilarious. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this has been interesting, informative, or just entertaining for you. If it has, please do the thing with the thumbs and whatnot. Thank you for watching. I am Blunty. I will catch you next time. And thank you as always to the patrons gloriously scrolling up above there, whose above and beyond support is wondrous.